welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarita V, and thanks for all the new subscribers. I was out for a couple of months with some family stuff to deal with. I'm home now, which is great, in my gorgeous, wonderful, very old home. Not very old, but old home. 1938 was when it was built, and this is our first winter here. And I realized that I should have been making curtains during the summer when I didn't need them because it is drafty. I've got just a simple project today. It's just rectangles and straight lines, and I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a nice ease in back into sewing. So I'm going to show you what I'm planning to do. I'll put a preview of the finished product so you can see what we're working toward. But basically, I have this little window above my oven and stove, and it's just inset. It is a newer window. It was replaced in the 90s, so it is vinyl and it has some of that air space in it, but it is so drafty. I don't know if that air, like somehow they get damaged and they're just, you know, kind of useless, but it is very cold. It's usually below freezing these days. So I am going to make a curtain for it. So what I want is a little ruffle. You put the rod in, and then the curtain, and then another rod, and then a little tiny bit of the gathering at the edges of that. So I want to have something that doesn't damage the walls, especially, I don't know if there's plaster in this area. I know that there's newer places that have been remodeled that have sheetrock, but drilling into plaster is no fun. So I don't want to install anything permanent. So I got these tension rods, so you can just kind of, they're like a shower curtain, but more for curtains. So I got 2 of those. And this other problem with this spot is that it's above the stove. So you don't want anything that's like loose and flowy. You want it to be really sitting tight in there. And that's the reason why I want to have a rod at the top and a rod at the bottom, because I don't want it being loose and flowy and to catch on fire when I'm frying some onion rings or something, you know, so safety is really important. I will also say, when we talk about fabric choice, try and find, if you're making your own curtains, I know it's really tempting to find like cute cottons with vintage prints in like the quilting section, and it's super cheap that way, but I highly recommend getting an upholstery type home decor fabric. A lot of them are treated so that they're not flammable. So that's something to think about when you're looking for a safe fabric, especially for a curtain above a window. The one that I'm using today I got from IKEA, and I'll show that to you in a moment. Actually, I'll show it to you now. So this here, you guys might know that I'm actually a botanist for my technical, boring, dry side. There's still a lot of art involved in it. I do have some more of an artistic venue in botany, but it's really it's fun. I enjoy it. If you are also into plant sciences, I have another channel that is just technical, keying out plants, learning the vocabulary and everything, so you can check that out. It's Thistle and Crow. The link is in the description. I was thinking about maybe for kitchen curtains doing something like, you know, something mod, mid-century, you know, little starbursts or geometric patterns, or even like some of those 1930s, like quilted cotton, really cute, like green, floral prints or that kind of thing. But I had this and I didn't have to leave the house for it, and it's just so cute. It's upside down for you guys. So this is a really nice cotton canvas fabric. It's a little bit on the thicker side. It's got these cute little vintage botanical drawings on it, and it's just super, super cute. So I'm gonna use this. However, it is so cold, and it's cotton and it's woven, and I think that it probably isn't going to keep too much cold out. I got one more thing, and this is a thermal blackout curtain. I just got it off Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. I got one. I didn't want pure white. This is kind of like a soft gray white. So I'm gonna do that, and my goal is I just really want to keep these up during the cold winter months, and then I can pull the rods down and I can just have open windows, open curtains, during the rest of the year when it's sunny and warm. So that's my goal. So the first thing, if you're gonna make some curtains and you kind of wanted some ideas, the first thing that I recommend is measuring your window. And for me, like I said, this is going to be inset inside of the window. So it needs to be precise. If it's too small, then I'll have air, cold air coming in through the bottom, usually the bottom, but you know, through the top too. So you don't want any spaces on the top. The width this way doesn't really matter because you just get more pleats. So I'm gonna make 2 panels and they can open up. So I think that's enough rambling. Let's get started and I'll show you how I'm going to decide on mapping out what I'm going to cut. When deciding on my pattern, and when you're working on making your own pattern, because your window is going to be a different size, you want to put the measurements here. Let's say that this is your window. Mine's rather long and rectangular. And this way is 16.25. And this way is 36. I'm going to make 2 panels. So I'm going to decide that that's going to be 36 total, but I'm going to split it in half. So 18 inches for each panel. 16.25 by 18 is the minimum to cover my window. Within the panel, I'm going to put in a rod. And the rod is going to be here up at the top. And I'm going to put one in the bottom. Let's work on the width first. The width is actually pretty easy. What you want to do is figure out, you want to add about 75% to it. So if this is 18 inches and I multiply it by 0.75, then I'll end up with 13.75. So that's what I want to add to it. So 18 plus 13.75 is 31.5. Then, so that'll give you enough space so that you can have some gathering in here and it will look really nice. Then I want to make sure that I add 1 inch hem on the sides. Right, so I'm going to fold it over a 1/2 inch and then fold it another 1/2 inch, and that's going to be my side seam allowances. So I'm going to add 1 on the left side and the right side, so 2 inches for seam allowance. So that will give me a 33.5 inch panel. And of course I'm going to want 2 of them. So in this case, 33.5 is ideal, but my fabric is actually 60 inches long. So I'm going to it's going to be really close. So I'm just going to take 60 inches and divide it in half. So I'm going to end up with 30 inch panels instead of 33.5. So altogether I'm going to lose 6 inches of gathering, but that's going to be fine. I am more worried about the repeating pattern. And this is actually a really big saver if you're able to get some home decor fabric. They're usually sold in 60 inch widths and not 45 widths. So in that case, you know, consider that when you're designing your panel. So ideal 33.5, but if you're on limited fabric, just make it 30. So I'm going to do 30 inches long, and I'm going to have 1 inch seam allowances. And that's what my final width is going to be. Okay, so the rod is a little bit more challenging. If we look at a two-dimensional project here, right? This is going to be 5/8 inch from that top to bottom if I just look at it directly on. But this is a three-dimensional world. So in reality, if you measure like this pen here, well, you know, let's say it's 5/8 inch, but from this top to this bottom, it's actually taking up 1 inch of space to have it wrap all the way around. So on the rod, even though we're going to, it looks like it's only taking up 5/8 of an inch, you want to leave a little bit more, a little extra room. So it's going to be about an inch. So the difference between 1 inch and 5/8 is 3/8. So we'll just kind of round up, right? We'll say a 1/2 inch. So that means that on the top and bottom, you're going to be a 1/2 inch short. So your curtains are going to be 1 inch short if you don't factor in this rod circumference. We're going to add to our 16.25, we're going to add 0.5 here and 0.5 here. And that covers the rod and what it's going to be taking up in 3D. Then I also want to make sure that I can fold this back over the back side so that it lines this bottom here, and we're going to end up with a panel on the back. So generally 4 to 5 inches is good for that. I am going to do 4 inches because that's what I have available for fabric. But if you're doing yours, do yours at 5 inches just because it's ideal. But I'm going to do 4. Then for this seam allowance on the back side of the panel, I'm also going to leave another, this can be a little bit on the small side. You can do about a 1/2 inch. You only need to fold it over once. So we're going to add another 0.5. So this is for rod. I realize I'm writing backwards for you guys. This is for the rod, the 3-dimensional rod portion. This is for the back lining of the curtain. And then this 0.5 is for seam allowance. I think that's everything that we'll need. So this length, we'll call it height. The height is going to be all of these added up. So this is 1 inch plus 1 inch. This is 1 inch, 5. So that's 5 inches plus 5 inches plus 16.25. So my height is going to be 26.25. And what I like to do is, and what I'm planning on doing this time, is I'll cut it out to like 29 inches or whatever. And then when I get my top hem in, I'll fit it into my window and just double check that is exactly where I want it to be. And then just kind of manually mark where I'm going to fold over this bottom hem so that it fits really nicely. Let's talk about the lining. Now, in the video, I did it differently. In hindsight, I'm coming back and showing you this better with what I've learned so far. What I recommend is, so in my curtains, what I did was I just lined my my curtain just below the rod. I didn't want it to add very much space, very much thickness, so that it'd be easy to open and everything. So I ended up just cutting out a custom panel that was just right below the rod and above the rod. And that worked out great. It looks really nice. It feels really good, but I don't recommend that. And the reason why is because this is a thermal blackout curtain, and I can see light coming in from the top here and the bottom here. All right, so what I recommend for, rather than doing this custom cut inside where you piece it in, I recommend doing your panel this 16.25 plus your rod extras. So 17.25 tall, right? That's your height. And then do this, if your panel was 33.5 inches, bring that in without the seam allowance. So make it 31.5 inches. In my case, I have 30 inches minus my 2 inches of seam allowances. So I'm going to make mine, I should have made mine 17.25 by 28 inches for my curtains. So that way you can just pre-cut it. You don't have to worry about piecing it in there like I did, and you'll have a really nice panel that reaches all the way up to the top, and it actually provides some of that room darkening and thermal properties on the very top. I thought that two thickness of the cotton would be enough to take care of that, but you know, during the daytime I can see the sunlight coming through, and I think it would look a lot better if I just went all the way to the top and bottom. I took a brief intermission, and now I am going to tell you something that I forgot to tell you, and that is wash and dry your fabric, especially if these are kitchen curtains. It's not like you're going to be washing them like once every 3 years or something. Make sure that you wash your fabric, do it on, I'm assuming for a kitchen you would probably use some sturdier fabrics. I mean, I guess maybe you could use lace, but if you use cotton, make sure you throw it in the washer on a hot load and dry it on high. That way your fabric will completely shrink. Actually, started cutting this out, and then I realized that I needed to do that first, so I took a little break. I did want to say I found it online. The pattern name is actually called Cicella, and it is, I found one place in Canada that has it for sale, and they are charging a lot. I bought mine on clearance for $2.50 a yard, and I really wish I would have just bought all the bolts, but they're charging $14 plus $10 delivery, so just to let you know. There's also a butterfly and insect, like scientific illustration type style fabric that was sold at the same time, so that one's also very cool. So the first thing I'm gonna do is and you don't have to do this if you have a small pattern, like a small print, but I am going through and I'm deciding where the top of my pattern is, and I'm marking 1/4 inch above a certain cut piece of fruit here, and now I'm marking it so it's straight along the top line. And I'm going to do this on both panels, and I approximated the top of this. I ended up having a 4-inch seam allowance on the top, so ideal would be, like I said, 5 inches, but 4 inches will be fine. So now I'm just pressing it down and making sure that it's nice and even at the top. And now that I knew where my top was, I could cut out my bottom. I wasn't sure where the top would end up being aligned to. Now I'm going to fold over the sides that 1-inch seam allowance, and so I am folding it over here about 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to fold it over a second 1/2 inch so that I have no raw edges showing, and it's a really nice side hem. This is going to hold our panel in, and so that's really good. Here I'm folding it over a second time. Then after that, then you can fold over the sides and the top hem. And there you see it looks really nice from the side. After the sides are done, you're gonna fold over the top hem. And I'm just gonna so you're going to fold this over and press it about 1/2 inch. And you can also fold up the bottom hem as well. Now that we have the sides and the top done, we can put the liner in. And like I said, I cut my liner small. I just wanted it to fit right under, like 1/2 inch all the way around the exposed part, but I should have done it all the way up to the top and all the way to the bottom. So, that's an oversight on my end. One thing to know about the liners is that the liner has like one side that's a little bit more like fabric and the other side that's a little bit more foamy. So this side here that I'm touching is much more fabric feeling, and the underside is much more like the foamy styrofoam feeling. So this side is ironable, the second side is questionable, and they're usually polyester, so iron on a low setting. I want to have the ability to wash and iron these in the future. So when you make this, make sure that you put the fabric ironable side on facing the outside. So you can see here where the liner doesn't go all the way to the top and bottom, which whatever, it's fine. They turned out really good. I really like how they turned out. So here I'm just piecing it in. So here you can see me pinning the sides in, and we're just going to do a top stitch all the way at the top, all the way to the bottom. This part doesn't have the liner, it doesn't matter. You're going to sew through the liner, and then you will keep sewing the portion that you don't have a liner. Of course, yours will be a much shorter portion than mine. You can see here that my sides are in there really nicely. And I'm going to smooth it all out, and then we're going to fold over our top hem. Now on this, I had originally planned on having 3 lines, but I decided on having 2 seams instead. So I wanted to make sure that the rods were loose enough to, the seam rod was loose enough to open and close well. So I did one about 1 inch down from the top to make my ruffle, and then I just sewed right along the edge there at the bottom, and that gave me lots of room, and it turned out really nice. And again, I just did a basic top stitch. You can see I did this one right up against the edge. And this turned out so good. I really like the way that it looks here. Now that I put it on the rod and I got my top done, I'm just going to double check that it actually fits exactly the way I want it to. Because what if I measured wrong? So here I'm remeasuring. The first mark is my window, and then I'm adding an extra 1/2 inch for that 3-dimensional rod section. So I'm now going to fold down the bottom and do the same. 1 inch from the bottom, and then right up at the top at the edge of my seam. Make sure you clean your window. You're not going to look at it again for quite some time. And I ran the casings in, the top and bottom, and installed it into my window. And you can see there it's like directly above the oven, so you want to make sure that you stay safe. And I really like how it turned out. It's super cute. Also, watch out for your cactus. All right, there you have it, all done. I'm so excited they turned out so nice, and they turned out great on the back side. You can, I'll show you a couple close-ups. They just look so professional. The feeling between the liner and the cotton canvas just feels great. So I really like how they look. Everything on here, I have gray countertops and gray and silver appliances. So I think that the botanical print in that gray color really fits the kitchen. I hope you enjoyed this very detailed tutorial, but with a lot of flexibility of how to adjust it for your windows. Thanks so much for watching. You can find me on Instagram at Sarita V Pinup, and I will see you soon. Bye.